Here we go, a night of baseball, Vikings, and water play. There's something for every sports enthusiast. We've got it all for you. Night 5 of Michelle Young's Journey to Find Love. The night starts off a one-on-one with Joe. No surprise here. After all, he's called Minnesota Joe, the same Joe that Michelle corresponded with in the DMs. Their date is sweet. Does anyone love anything as much as Michelle and Joe love high school? Things are going along well for Joe. The baseball game, the high school memory tour, at least until we get to the basketball portion. Does Joe really miss that many shots, or is this creative editing? Michelle manages to not only beat Joe, she does so in a dress too.
It's not about a girl beating you at this point. You're not going to beat me. It's about a girl in a dress beating you.
The highlight of their date is when Joe gets vulnerable, though. He goes into his story of injuries and how that affected his mood, that he felt depressed and anxious, even suicidal. Finally, the franchise puts up a trigger warning and provides resources for suicide prevention. I hope that's something that they'll continue. My favorite Joe quote of the night.
One of my favorite quotes is, the best things in life are on the other side of fear.
So true, Joe. Next, we have the Viking dates. While the men think that they're going on a football date, little do they know that it's an episode of Fear Factor. Do you remember that show? The show where people had to eat nasty things?
We must have sustenance.
Yes, it's kind of has that feeling or that vibe. The men have to do things like their Viking calls and eat crunchy fish, the pig's head, and throw logs, all for the sake of love. And the men do so, except for Chris S., who's dressed as the centaur.
I'm warrior.
Because everyone else got the memo, pay attention to Michelle. And what the heck, Chris, who just last week was calling out the guys for not making Michelle feel like she's a priority, doesn't feel up for the task. Clayton wins the group date rose for opening up. I don't know about you, but I'm still not seeing enough of Clayton to warrant him being the next bachelor. But what we do see of Clayton, the little bit, and it's been highly edited, I'm sure, is that he reports to Michelle that his family is very similar to hers.
And yeah, my parents, I feel the same way that you do. My parents have taught me so much, and they're so important.
And you can see that touches Michelle's heart. But did I miss anything else? Let me know in the comments if I did. But here's where the date gets good. Chris, who was pouting earlier, now thinks that Michelle should come find him. It didn't go lost on anyone that Chris was acting like an insecure person.
Where her and I stand, I'd love to see her thoughts on me, and I'd love to speak to her.
Michelle does thank the men for making the effort to make her feel seen. Chris, on the other hand, is upset. Upset that Michelle didn't check on him during the group date or thank him for standing up for her from the last cocktail party. It's at this point that I think, wow, if you're going to be on the show, The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, don't you watch previous episodes? It's like going on Survivor and not knowing what happened in previous seasons. The technique has not worked in the past, especially if you're the villain, except for in the case of Ben Flanagic. Do you remember him? He chose Courtney. However, that didn't end well either. But you can admire Michelle in her green dress. Can we just talk about that? They have really upped the ante in the clothing this season, and Michelle looks beautiful in just about anything. Next up is the one-on-one with Nayte. I do like that Nayte is very complimentary to Michelle. He appears quite verbal.
You look amazing.
He gives her all kinds of compliments and clearly demonstrates that there's some great chemistry between the two of them. You cannot deny it. And when her two best friends joined them on the date, they confirmed that too. What's fun about the hometown date is how relaxed Michelle is. More than in any other bachelorette, we finally get to see who she is, where she grew up, what makes her tick. We find out more about Michelle and her parents, but we get to see her on the lake and in her high school. The one thing that her friend said is that Michelle hasn't asked previous men the hard questions. And this confirms for me my theory that Michelle may be a low expressive person. So she seems a bit delayed at times. But her friends have such a vote of confidence.
Get to know her deeply. She's so worth knowing, trust me.
Confidence saying what an amazing person she is and all worth knowing. Her other friend says, I am envious of you, the way that you look at each other. And the stories about growing up and tubing are all nice memories for Michelle. The evening portion of the date is going great. That is until Chris S. decides to interrupt, like he couldn't wait for the next time to tell Michelle. But he decides that his timing is important and it doesn't matter what else is going on. My feeling is he just wants more screen time. Now, I have two theories here, and I'd love to know in the comments what your thoughts are. One is Chris is that so insecure, he's anxious, looking for validation. Or two, he feels entitled somehow, that he deserves this special attention. The vibe I get, though, is he's not able to read the room very well. I have to say, though, I did love how Michelle handled Chris. First off, she listened to him and let him speak his feelings. But then, in very direct ways, she said, I didn't like what you did.
I do appreciate you wanting to look out for me, but also at the same time, I can speak for myself, and I want a man who is going to stand and support me when I speak, and not a man who's going to speak for me.
And I can speak for myself.
Yes?
Yes, Michelle, you can. And if Chris had been paying attention, he would know this. Also, you can't deny there's no chemistry between Michelle and Chris. How then would she even pick him? His thought was because he did come forward with this information that he should have been the one that got the one-on-one. Clearly, you cannot compare Chris S. to Nayte. It's night and day. But Michelle shows incredible tact and restraint. Instead of calling Chris out, she neutrally says, I do appreciate
when you spoke at the cocktail party, because you did speak for me. But when you spoke about it to everybody openly, that's where I was struggling or frustrated.
What we can learn here is that it's really ugly to start talking about other people and then to say, well, I'm concerned for you. This is a cover. It's kind of like when your mother says, I'm worried about you. While that's nice, the underlying message is, do you not trust me? I love that Michelle also said, I'm going to walk you out now. And then Chris, in the limo, has nothing to say. I found that interesting. We get back to her date with Nayte, and Michelle gets vulnerable herself, only this time sharing her own story about her 3-year-long relationship. And it sounds like something went incredibly wrong in terms of Michelle's health. I had to wonder if the chronic stress from the toxic relationship, we'll call it that she had an adrenal shutdown. Because, as we know, these things take a long time to heal, and the body responds to something that wasn't going right. It sounds like the entire family went through this together. But what I liked about Nayte's response, in his somewhat indignant way, saying,
I couldn't imagine being with someone like you and not just letting you kind of taking advantage of the type of person I feel like you already are.
I have to wonder what Michelle's ex is thinking right about now. All of that takes us to the rose ceremony. We have to talk about Martin and his faux pas. I worried about this last week, as I mentioned, when he said nice things about Jamie and that was not well timed. I'm beginning to wonder, though, this is my theory, again, a speculation, I don't know at all. Does Martin have some kind of social anxiety or ADD? A couple of times he seemed like he was not in focus and had to say what question. That felt odd to me. But there's a discomfort there when he talks with Michelle and with other people too. And sometimes people who do have social anxiety, they can say things that don't really make sense. So it's almost like the harder he tries to be more vulnerable, the more open mouth, insert foot. And we can see that. And I'm okay with that too, because that can be a very endearing quality. Someone who's anxious or nervous and talks about that. But when you start to talk about women being high maintenance.
What makes a girl high maintenance?
Just like expecting somebody just to do absolutely everything for them. And I just think a relationship, I don't think just because a man is a man, they have to do everything for somebody.
We have to kind of worry about that, right? Now let me pause for a moment, because the truth is, men, women being high maintenance, the reality is that we're all high maintenance if you just look at it. By the time you get into a relationship with someone and you're in a long-term relationship with them, there's going to be a certain level of maintenance. But here it's implied that the women would want to be taken care of. And of course, Michelle takes offense to that because that's not her character at all. That's not what she's looking for. She's looking for an egalitarian or equal relationship. What's worse, and why I'm going to give a red flag to Martin at this point, is that it's okay, again, if he has social anxiety, but then he continues to say, I didn't do anything wrong, and he becomes quite defensive, that somehow Michelle heard it wrong.
I don't necessarily think I said anything wrong today. I just think there might have been a little bit of miscommunication on her end.
This to me feels like a backwards apology. It's sort of like, instead of just saying, I'm sorry, I hurt you, they say, I'm sorry if you took it offensively. I'm sorry if you heard it the wrong way. And that's what really didn't sit well with me. So overall, what can we learn from this episode? Is there anything we can analyze here? Well, what I might say is vulnerability pays off. It always has on the show, and it paid off this time too, because I want to give my MVP award this time to Joe. I think he did a really nice job softening. You can feel his softening with Michelle, and she's warming up to him really quite nicely. Number 2, stay in your lane. And if no one's asking your opinion, you might think that this is a nice offer or a gesture, but as I've said, we've never seen this work out well. So don't complain, make requests, and stay focused on the person who's the most important. Thank you. This is week 5 of my rose analysis. Let me know in the comments what you think. And just for you to know too, I was on a recent episode of Nick Viall talking about Red, Taylor Swift's new album, but in particular the short film All Too Well. And we were talking about some negative toxic behaviors, about gaslighting, and about love bombing. So if you want to catch it there, look in my playlist and you can find that video too. I'll see you all next week. Thank you.